You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast. I am Jim Coppinger of Zentech Consultants, and with me is my partner in crime and overall genius who runs the world, Mr. Rocco Parisi. How you doing today, Rocco?
Overall genius.
Hey, I'm feeling good. I got a good night's sleep last night. Okay. Figured I'd be complimentary for once.
What happens if you sleep 12 hours?
I
call me a brilliant genius.
I'm saying I wouldn't know. I've never gotten that much sleep. The wife wakes me up before I can sleep that long. There's things to do. So, goodness. So, all right. So what are we doing today? Oh, yeah. So today we're talking about red lines and markups, right? Best processes for, modifying your designs without using a CAD system. So that's kind of where we're going today. So that's the topic, see? All right. So let's get into it then. Let's talk about red lines and markups, right? So this is an incredibly vital process that very often gets overlooked completely in the design and the construction world. I think there's still a very large contingent of folks out there who handle edits and changes to documents using, pen and paper. There's still a lot of folks who, will take a full set of printed drawings and a red pen and a couple of highlighters, and they'll sit down at a drafting table or a desk and spend hours marking up and reviewing drawings. And that's not a bad thing. It certainly works, right? It's worked that way for like a century at this point, maybe even more. But like most things, modern technology has improved greatly on this pretty simple process, making it faster, cheaper, and much more efficient. The issue is, as it always is, convincing senior level staff that they should take the time to learn a new process. Right? There is, and there has always been, a resistance to technology, right, and changes when it comes to executives and senior staff in American design and construction firms. And honestly, I'm not sure if it's the you can't teach an old dog new tricks mentality, or if they just see themselves as being too busy to take the time to learn anything new. Whichever the case is, I think there's a definite need to change that mindset, particularly when it comes to tools like the ones we're discussing today, right, that can have a very dramatic impact on your project's profitability. So, Rocco, let me ask you, do you think there's a big difference in how age and experience level adapt to technology changes in the design world?
Yes and no. It all depends on the individual. It's generally younger folks are more willing to adapt to technology, but it's also a thing of you can get sunk into working on a job for hours and hours and hours. But if there's a better technology out there that could save you those hours and hours, why not look at it? It's funny, and we'll get into this a little bit more down the road here. But there's a nice guy that I'm corresponding with, who's considering buying Bluebeam, and he literally tells me I drive 60 miles a day just to print out drawings.
Oh, good Lord.
And he really wants to he sees the benefit in getting Bluebeam, and it's like, yeah, that's still going on today. People are really going out of their ways and spending so much extra time when there's technology out there that could really save them time and money.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, I do think, and the one thing I thought about, and I don't want to sound very ageist, right? I'm an old man, and I make my living on the technology side of this industry. And I don't think it's necessarily a question of how old you are. I think what it really comes down to is that younger people, they're still in the mindset of, hey, I'm new to this industry and I need to learn it. So whatever's available, they're learning it. That's part of their growing curve to becoming a professional in this arena. Whereas I think a lot of times, folks who are my age, right? I'm definitely older than you. We're not all babies like you are, Rocco.
You're right.
You're right. So people who are my age, we've been doing this for 30, 40 years, you know? And for us, we're like, well, look, I've learned and I know this industry inside and out. You kind of get a concept like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to learn new things all the time. And I do think that that's a mistake. It's an understandable one, but I think it's a mistake long term on your projects for exactly the reason that you said, right? It all comes down to profitability and cost. And the idea of redlining and marking up drawings, it seems like a pretty simple thing, right? With the only cost being the time that you spend doing the review. But that's not the case, right? So if we think about this, right, let's start with the idea of marking up physical plans with a pen. All right, first of all, you have to have somebody spend time plotting those out. Somebody's got to print those drawings and collate them and staple them and give them to you. All right, and with a large set, that can be, an hour or more of billable time, right? Every single time that you need to review a set, right? And over the lifespan of a project, believe me, I've done this in engineering firms. It can be hundreds of times. We were printing 4 or 5 sets for different people every single day, right? Mm-hmm. So that's hundreds and hundreds of sets being printed, across a project. Right? So you're looking at, just for somebody to print this out, that's just like 100 hours or more of lost time right there on your project. Okay, now maybe that's a minor expense, right? Because the real cost here really lies in that printed page itself, and this is something that I am always shocked, right? When I talk to people, particularly engineers and architects, they just look at me like, "What?" Right? Nobody has ever done any type of a cost analysis on plotting. Right? This just happened to be because I, spend a lot of time being, CAD manager and technology director for a lot of firms. This is something that was part of my responsibilities, right? So you have to understand, right? Design firms churn out hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds, maybe thousands of plots every single day, right? And it's mainly for convenience, right? They never think about it twice. There's 15 engineers working 10 different jobs, and they each want prints and updates and print that for me and print this for me and give me a copy of that so they can look at it later on, right? So let me ask you, Rebecca, how much do you think it costs, right, to print out a single, just one 24 by 36 standard D-size document for a construction drawing?
I don't really know. I mean, I'm not really an expert in the field, but you got to figure the cost of the paper, the cost of the, of the ink, right? The cost of the plotters, which are not cheap.
Yep. The cost of the power to run them, the cooling for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. The time of the people who are doing it. Yep. It all ties into it, right? And here's the thing that you got, the average cost, and this is the average, right? For mid-range, medium firms. I'm not talking about like high-end folks here. That most design firms are paying, it's $1.65 per square foot of printed paper. That means a single 24 by 36 drawing, one single print, is costing you $9.90.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, if you're working a 50 drawing set, and that's a small job, that's $500 that you're paying every single time that you print a drawing set for review. And like I said, you're doing this hundreds of times on a project, right? Times however many projects. But, companies are spending ridiculous amounts of money, right? That adds up really, really fast. And like I said, that printing cost is a part of it, right? Because once that manual red line is done, right, you still have to pay a drafter to sit and go through each and every page of the set you've marked up, right? Then making changes in the CAD system and then highlighting them to show that they've been done, right? It's a time-consuming and very error-prone process, right? There are always, when you give someone a set of physical marks, there's always something that gets missed that they didn't see, right? They stopped for a cup of coffee and came back, so you have to go out, print another check set at another $500, right? Go through the process again and repeat and, rinse, repeat, and keep doing it, right? In reality, the manual markup process is easily costing your company tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars on every project. It's insane. It's probably the biggest money drain that you have going on. So, Rocco, is this something that even comes up in your conversations with our clients? When you're talking about markup tools. I know we talk a lot with people about how convenient software-based markup tools can be, but do they ever really bring up and talk about the lost revenue they're doing in the manual process?
I I don't know that the cost factor comes up so much as does the productivity gains that they see from tools like what we're about to discuss, Bluebeam and some of the BIM 360 products. So, obviously productivity translates into dollars. So it's more the discussion work starts at the productivity level.
Right. Which is not a bad place to be, right? I mean, look, and anytime you're looking to improve your workflow, your process, and save money, that's a good thing. All right, but like I said, I just don't think people understand the expense that they're dealing with today with those manual processes. And like you said, right, the real benefit that most people will see is the ease of use and the consistency that you get from using these, right? When you shift to a markup software, like Bluebeam Review or BIM 360 Docs or any of the others, you get the ability to freehand changes or to use defined tools and symbols, right, to make changes faster and much more consistent, right? You get the capacity to import changes then as backgrounds into your CAD file, right, or translate the markups in so that the drafters can see where they go directly in place, right, which makes it much more likely for them to get everything done and for things to get done correctly rather than the hard copy print and redo it 15 times to get all the markups done. You also get the ability in these softwares to track the changes easily, so you can verify what's been done, what's still pending, what needs more clarification, and you even get the benefit of being able to maintain the digital markup files for the duration of your project, right? Much more easily than you can paper drawings. Believe me, there's no company on the planet that can, the sheer amount of paper that gets printed out in an engineering or architectural firm is insane. Talk about like environmental impact. We're just killing trees left and right. We're digitally, right? We can maintain those forever, and we can see the when, the why, the who, the how of what design changes were made whenever, right? So that I think are the major benefits, right? So I think that kind of sums up the why of markup software, right? And why it's such an important thing. So I think we can take a break here for a quick word from today's sponsor, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with more of the Cattle Call podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us, 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco. All right, so now that we're back, we're continuing our conversation here about the benefits of markup softwares. Now when it comes to the Redline and the markup world, my favorite tool is and has always been Bluebeam Review. It's a versatile software that does a lot more than just markups, right? But that markup functionality is often the gateway to its more advanced features. All right, but for today, we're gonna focus on the markup tools, and because it ties into what we're talking about, right? Makes sense, right, Rocco?
It does.
Hey, once in a while, I can actually stay on topic. It happens. Who knew? So one of the most powerful features in Review is that it lets you create customized, reusable markup tools, right? That you can share with everybody in your company. In other words, you can save and reuse, standard symbols, lines, or even full paragraphs of text and notes that you can use over and over again on different projects. And I think that dramatically simplifies the markup process itself, right? And it gives your drafting staff, right, the guys who have to make these changes, a very consistent output that they can easily recognize and update with a lot fewer errors, questions, and problems. The markup tools here in Bluebeam are also going to include all kinds of simple base tools, right? Things like freehand pens where you can just sketch and highlight and draw just like you were drawing with a pen. Right? It has highlighters built in, so you can highlight things that you need. Right? It even has call outs with leaders, revision bubble tools. Right? All of these so that your reviewers, whoever's doing the actual reviewing work, can make comments and changes in the same way that they would with a pen on a piece of paper, right? But just faster, cleaner, easier, and obviously without those insanely high costs of using paper prints. Okay, so Rocco, how big of a thing is it for our clients to have a reusable tool set in review, right? How many folks do we deal with that are interested in setting up custom tools for their users?
Yeah, well, it comes up. It definitely comes up every single week. I mean, we get calls from folks that are looking to automate the process, whether they're doing whether they're electrical contractors or folks that are doing concrete work, drywall type work, whether they're doing lighting work. It definitely comes up. I think that a part of it comes down to understanding the Bluebeam tool a little bit more, but it definitely comes up. And again, they're looking for ways to automate the technology, and that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I said, obviously, I do a lot of that work on the tech side. So yeah, I constantly see people who want the markup tools and the takeoff and estimating tools done so that they can share them throughout the whole company. So I think it's a huge benefit and can save a lot of time. So one of the other things that I really like about Review, and honestly most modern markup softwares, is that they let you save and share your markups digitally, right? Which makes perfect sense, right? We're talking about software, everything's going to be digital. So, but what that means is that you can use tablets or a 2-in-1 laptop out in the field, right, directly on site, and be able to share your markups, either by uploading them to the cloud through, SharePoint or Google, or, in like Bluebeam, right? Bluebeam lets you share them in real time through what we call a session. And that means that people all over the world, regardless of where they are, they can see your markups happen as you place them, right? So you think about it, that makes it possible to have, RFIs and changes happening immediately instead of waiting, days of weeks to submit them from the field to the office to the engineers and back via email, right? With a system like Review, you can even use your tablet to take and integrate photos directly into your markups, right? Which makes it ideal for construction projects and renovation work. Right? The ability to take a picture and then add comments and draw on top of it it's just priceless tool. For real world work, it's amazing, right? And it's why so many construction firms have made the move. They're really in, for the guys who are noted as always being behind the curve in technology when it comes to the markup tools, construction firms are actually leading the way here. And that's why, Review, I think, I forget the number. It's like over 60% of all construction firms use Review at some level, and it's growing every day. Right? And what a lot of them have done is they've made the transition to using it not just as like a markup tool, but they're using it as their primary project management interface because it's got so many additional tools that really make the construction process a lot easier. So yeah, again, Rocco, in terms of construction firms, right? How many of them are actively using tools like Bluebeam or BIM 360 Docs to communicate and control the project documentation, right? And also, what are they using it just for construction documents, or do we find that they're using it for other things like specs and contracts and invoicing and so on?
No, like you just said, on average, it's 60 to 70% of firms are using tools like this, and particularly, given what's going on now with the virus. I mean, they want to be able to automate, and you could be anywhere and use these markup tools. And I'm talking everybody from small to large firms. A product like Bluebeam is definitely very affordable. You have a one-time license with the option of annual maintenance. And we'll talk a little bit more about this here, but you're not looking at a huge expense either.
Right.
And yeah, they are using it, across the board from from RFIs through to estimates.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, great systems like that let you share everything, through one tool makes your life a lot easier. So let's see, the other big player in this market really is the BIM 360 Docs product from Autodesk. And it really is. It's a great and very powerful product, right? It's particularly useful in terms of working directly with CAD and BIM files, right? And being able to display them in the field. For the design folks, right, the architects, the engineers, that is a really big benefit. But I think for the construction world, it's a bit of overkill. I think that most construction folks just kind of want PDF files, right, that they can mark up quickly and move on from. Look, don't get me wrong, BIM 360 does that too. It does PDF work. I think there's a bit more searching involved in dealing with the PDFs, right? And the sheer number of files and display options that BIM 360 provides can be a little daunting for people who don't use it every single day. I think the other limitation that I find in the BIM 360 is that it doesn't have the customization capabilities, or at least not to the level that you would find in Review, right? Docs has some really nice built-in tools. It just doesn't let you easily create and share your own custom-built features. For the most part, when you're using BIM 360 Docs, you're going to use the tools that are provided for marking up in this system, right? It's got basic pens and highlighters and the basic tools. I really think that its biggest benefit is that it integrates with the full BIM 360 suite of tools, right? And it provides cloud hosting, all right, of all those files on a project in really any format. You can actually host DWG and Revit files and so on in the BIM 360 and access them and mark them up. So that's a definite positive. Like I said, much more for the design folks.
So let me just ask you, Jim, but just because I run into this often enough, what do you think about Adobe?
Yeah, Adobe, like I said, for the most part, they've got the full design suite. Adobe is what I tend to call a business application focus. In other words, if you're an attorney or an insurance agent or an administrative assistant dealing with 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, you know what I mean, or 11 by 17 legal document kind of things, they're great, and they do have markup tools and things for that. But again, they're not. They kind of stepped out. Adobe stepped out of the AEC community years back, right? And they kind of left that to Bluebeam. Bluebeam kind of took over the construction and design large format construction world. So in that respect, I mean, Adobe is great when you're dealing with, like I said, paper documents of, the standard letter size format. Does a lot of great things for that, but I think it falls by the wayside once you get into dealing with construction documents.
Well, and it's also quite costly, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You're on a monthly subscription with it versus with a product like Bluebeam, it's a one-time purchase with the option of annual maintenance.
Yeah, yep. You get much more choices, like I said, and that's part of the issue that you run into. Again, we're going to talk about that, right? So yeah, actually, you know what? Let me ask you. So, and it is right. So exactly what you're saying, right? That's my other concern that I have with something like BIM 360 Docs. It's a subscription-based cloud tool, right? Which means that only people who have paid licenses can access it, right? That means that even the people who you want to work with, they have to buy it too, right? So how do you find that people react to that, right? What's the response to that format that you get versus, like you were saying, the Bluebeam perpetual license model, right? And their process of working in, just PDF files that can be shared or opened by anyone who has a PDF editor.
Yeah, well, this discussion comes up a lot, even on the CAD side, right? We sell and support BricsCAD, and so the argument over a perpetual one-time license versus the subscription, and you have a lot of people that have gotten used to it, and they accept the fact that, well, this is a monthly cost of doing business, but you have a lot of people that are, why am I paying this software company this amount of money every month? So there's a vast majority of people that they want to buy the product and own it, and they want the option of the annual maintenance. Mm-hmm. So it really depends, but it's a good mix. of feelings about it.
Yeah, and I think the answer is simple, right? And Bluebeam does. They give you the option. And that's what I think it really all has to come down to. If you just give people the choice, let them decide which model works best for them. You know? That it seems simple, but just like the bigger companies just, they're going to get their money. The one other thing I will throw out there that I really do like about Bluebeam, particularly we were talking about like the file hosting and the sharing. Like I said, with BIM 360 and all the Autodesk products, everybody who is accessing, right? So if you're looking to have 30 engineers and 20 architects and 8 construction guys all accessing the files, every single one of them has to have a subscription. They all have to buy their own licensing, right? Versus with Bluebeam, you can invite people in to share and look at your files and work with you on your files off of your license. So you only need one license to have 30 or 40 people, actually up to 500 technically, who can get in and mark up and work with you on the document. So that's a pretty impressive setup for a much lower price point. That's one of the things I really like about it. So I just figured I'd throw that in there. So all right, so let's see. All right, so I think that pretty much is covers what we want to talk about right today, right? We talked about the necessity of digital markup software for redlining, right? We talked about the two big players in the market, right? And I think at the end of the day, I think that these tools, whichever one works for you, right, are a must-have for every single company, whether you're architecture, engineering, construction, or even manufacturing. It doesn't matter, right, if you're building widgets in a factory or you're designing, the next architectural masterpiece, if you're doing structural steel analysis or if you're just, building another Five Guys burger joint for, me to get even fatter in. We all need markup software, right, to communicate our ideas and our changes effectively to everybody in the design process. So I think we can leave it there. And we will catch you guys in the next episode. All right? So thank you guys for being here today. Rocco, say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, fine people.
There you go. And we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast.